Let me go over to bring in an artwork to quickly digitize that right now. I'm going to go over to graphics, right? I'm going to come over to import graphic. Then I'm going to go over to a folder. I have the folder on my desktop already. I'm going to bring in a logo to quickly work on. I'm going to bring in this logo. That is it. So we are going to digitize this logo together now, right? Just this logo we have around here. So one thing I need you to know, that if you want to digitize your logo, the first thing you need to do is to pay close attention to your logo. You have to study your logo. You have to study the flow, and you also have to determine which color is going to come first. For logos that has multiple colors, you need to first determine which color you would like to stitch first, then the next. All these things enables you to be able to digitize your logo properly and follow the right flow for your digitizing, right? So I'm going to go over to pick my tool now, which is the complex fill tool. Then the first element I'm going to digitize first on this logo now is this blue element. That is the first element I'm going to digitize first on this logo. So I'm going to go over here now to click on this point, right? I'm going to click this point. Let me zoom in. I'm going to click here. Click here. Yeah. Yeah. Right, then I'm going to close it up here. Right, then I'm going to click on the enter key on my keyboard to generate my stitch. Right, I've already generated my stitch. Let me change the stitch type. I'm going to come over here, select tatami, right? Then I'm going to click on my reshape tool to adjust my traces very well. The lines, I need to align with what we have there. Digitizing is actually very sweet when you know what to do, when you know the right tools to use. Quick one before we get back into the video. If you are enjoying this free tutorial and you would like to learn embroidery digitizing in a more structured way, I invite you to join my complete course, Embroidery Digitizing Mastery, from basics to brilliance. Inside, I'll take you from fundamentals to advanced level digitizing using practical real-world projects and easy to follow lessons. Inside, you will learn how to digitize logos, carton flaps and pockets, agbada embroidery designs, and much more. If you are ready to stop guessing and start digitizing with confidence, click the link below or in the description to get started now. The early bird offer is only open for the limited time. Let's get back into it. That is it. I'm going to bring this also a little bit down. So we have two dots here. So I'm going to take out one of the dots. Okay, this one is the direction tool, right? Then I'm just going to come over here, bring this. Then I'm going to apply color, which is the tea blue color, right? I'm going to click on this, apply my color, right? So I want the color to be very close to what we have there. So I'm just going to right click on the color here. I'm going to right click on it, right? Then I'm going to come over to this place and then select the closest color we have there. Can you see that we now have this color very close? That is it, right? Then I'm going to go over to digitize the next element. I'm going to go over to digitize the next element on the logo, right? So I'm going to come over here now. I'm going to pick my tool again, which is the complex fill tool, right? I'm going to click on here, take this up, bring this way, right? Just tracing around it. So another thing I want to do right now is that, so when it gets to this area where there is white element, I'm going to take it in a little bit so that when we digitize the white element and it runs, the white element is going to stay on top or climb this one so that it's going to come out very well. So I'm going to show you now. I'm going to click here, then then I'm going to click on my enter key 3 times to generate my stitch. You can see that. So let me click on the reshape tool to shape this properly. So when you're digitizing your logo, no matter what you're doing, it is very important that you double check each element as you are digitizing them. So if they are not properly digitized, you have the chance of using the reshape tool to reshape that element and make it, align with what you have on the artwork. It is very important that you do that, right? Then I'm gonna go over to change the stitch type to tatami. I could use satin split also, but I choose to use tatami here. I just love how tatami comes out on logos, right? So I'm going to click on the select tool. I'm going to right click on it, go to object properties, then I'm going to come over here to select my field type. I'm going to click on the fields. I'm going to click on the drop down menu, then I'm going to come down and choose the tatami option. So there is these settings that I will do when I'm using tatami field, right? You come over, look at this place, this spacing side. This I always make this 0.45 or 0.50. Then this place that says minimum length, I always make it 1 or 0.80. So what this does, that no matter the embroidery machine you take your logo to, it's going to run very smoothly on the embroidery machine. There's not going to be unnecessary thread breaks when it's running on the machine. So this is what this does when you do it properly. Then I'm going to go over to change the color to this blue, blue color. I'm going to click on it. Just change the color. So another thing I need to do now is to set the start points and head points. So I'm going to set the start point and head point for the first element. I'm going to click on it, click on my reshape tool. So I want it to start here, and then I want it to stop here, right? I want it to start here, then I want it to stop here. That is it. Then this one, I want it to start here, and then I want it to stop here. It means that when this element starts here and stop here, it's going to come over here and start here and then stop here. So it reduces the jumps on your embroidery machine, right? So I'm going to go over to the next element, which is this white element we have over here. I'm going to come over here and pick my tool again, which is the complex fit tool. Then I'm going to trace around. I'm going to left click, I'm going to left click on my mouse, left click. Another important thing I need to let you know is that if you want to digitize and you want to take it seriously, I always love when you use a mouse for your digitizing. It's going to enable you to actually properly digitize very well. It's very good when you use mouse instead of the trackpad on your computer, on your laptop. You are using a laptop, right? So I'm going to click on my reshape tool to reshape this object properly. I'm going to bring this up here, then I'm also going to bring this here, then I'm going to bring this here also. Then I'm going to change the fill. I'm going to go over to, I'm going to right click on it, on the elements or the object. I'm going to go over to object properties. Then I'm going to click on this fills option here. I'm going to click on the drop down menu. Then I'm going to select tatami. That is it. Then I'm going to select the color, which is the white color. Can you see that? Then I'm going to check the start and end points of these elements. I'm going to click on the reshape tool. I'm going to bring my start point here. I want it to start here, and then I want it to stop here, right? Then I'm going to go over to digitize the next element, the next white element. So I'm going to go over again to pick my tool, which is the complex fill tool. Let me zoom in. Then I'm going to trace around. So I need to hide this. I'll need to hide my stitches so that it will enable me to trace this white element here properly. So I'm going to use letter S on my keyboard to hide the stitch. You can see the stitch is now hidden. Then I'm going to click on here, just trace around the white objects. I'm going to right click, left click, then I'm going to left click around here also, then come over here and then left click. Then I'm going to strike on the enter key 3 times, 1 2 3, to generate my stitch. Then I'm going to click on the select tool, then right click on the objects. I'm going to go over to object properties, then come over to fills, then change the fills to tatami. I'm still going to change it fit to satin split so that you can see what happens, right? We can actually also use satin split for this object here, because actually it's more logo, like small elements on the logo when we eventually size it. So I'm going to go over to click on select tool, then I'm going to select my color, then the start and end point, I'm going to set that. I'm going to click on my reshape tool, so it starts here automatically, then I'm going to leave it there, then the stop point stops here. So but I would like the stop point to stop here, so that when it stops here, it's going to come over to the next element here, which is the finance text, right? Quick one before we get back into the video. If you are enjoying this free tutorial and you would like to learn embroidery digitizing in a more structured way, I invite you to join my complete course, Embroidery Digitizing Mastery, from basics to brilliance. Inside, I'll take you from fundamentals to advanced level digitizing, using practical real-world projects and easy to follow lessons. Inside, you would learn how to digitize logos, carton flaps and pockets, agbada embroidery designs, and much more. If you are ready to stop guessing and start digitizing with confidence, click the link below or in the description to get started now. The early bird offer is only open for the limited time. Let's get back into it. That is it. We have it right there. Can you see that our logo is coming out so beautiful? Right. So let's go over to the next, which is the text over here. So I'm going to type the text now. I'm going to click on my text tool, which is this letter A here. It's called text tool or lettering tool. I'm going to click on it, then click on anywhere on my work area. Then I'm going to type my text, finance. That is it. Then I'm going to strike on the enter key to generate my stitch. You can see that our stitch is generated. Then I'm going to just fit it in properly. Right, let me undo this, click on it, let me zoom out a little bit. So I'll just make sure my text is fit to the artwork. Zoom in, take this up, then let's click, take this up, then bring this close here, bring this close here. So what I'm going to do is now to move each letters on the text. I'm going to come over here to click on the reshape tool. Then I'm going to click, there is a point here. When I click on the reshape tool, we have some dots on. Look at this dot here, look at it here and here. So when I click on this, it's going to enable me to move each text, each letter separately. You can see that. So I'm able to move this letter now, right? Then I'm going to come over here again, move this one down here, right? Then I also going to come over here, move this right here. I'm also going to come here, move this right here, just to make sure it fits with the artwork, right? I'm also going to move this right here. That is it. You can see that we have our text there. So but whenever I'm digitizing logos like this, I always make sure I get the exact font of the text when I'm digitizing. So if you want to select your font, you can just click on it, click on the text, go over to right click on it, then go over to object properties, then you're going to click on this drop down menu here. Look at this place here. You're going to click on the drop down menu and then come down to look for the best font, the font that best fits into what we have on the artwork. Alternatively, what I always do is when I can't really find the text, what I always do is that I digitize each letters one by one. So I'm going to do that now just to show you what what is achievable. Quick one before we get back into the video. If you are enjoying this free tutorial and you would like to learn embroidery digitizing in a more structured way, I invite you to join my complete course, Embroidery Digitizing Mastery, from basics to brilliance. Inside, I'll take you from fundamentals to advanced level digitizing using practical real-world projects and easy to follow lessons. Inside, you will learn how to digitize logos, carton flaps and pockets, agbada embroidery designs, and much more. If you are ready to stop guessing and start digitizing with confidence, click the link below or in the description to get started now. The early bird offer is only open for the limited time. Let's get back into it. When you are in a situation where you can't find the font for your text, right? So I'm going to click on this now. I'm going to delete this one that I already digitized. Then I'm going to digitize my text. I'm going to digitize each letters one by one. So I'm going to come over here now and then click on my column A tool, right? That is the tool I'm going to use to digitize my text now. I'm going to click on the column A tool. Then I'm going to come over here to start digitizing the text one by one. I'm going to come over here, click here, right, left click. Now I'm going to left click, left click, left click. Then I'm going to click on the enter key to generate my stitch. Can you see that? Then I'm also going to come over here. So I want this, once this finished sewing, instead for the machine to jump from here to here, I would like to just use a running stitch to travel from here and then come over here before it starts stitching this part. So I'm going to click on my run tool now, click on it. So I'm just going to start from here, just take it up here and then click here. Then I'm going to click on the enter key to generate my stitch. So what happens is that once this starts from here and stop here, it's going to just join this here. It's not going to jump, it's going to join here, then run all the way through and come over here. Then it picks this one again. So I'm going to come over here, click on my column A tool again. I'm going to left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, come over here. I'm going to left click again, left click, then I strike on the enter key on my keyboard to generate my stitch. Can you see that? So another thing I'm going to do now is to use my reshape tool. I always make sure I use my reshape tool to shape whatever element I'm digitizing very well, to make sure it's actually aligns with what we have on the artwork. So I'm going to click on my reshape tool now, right? If you are just joining the live, I want you to please double tap so that you can have more people to get the notification to join this live stream. I'm going to bring this, just reshaping properly to make sure we have exactly what we have on the artwork. One of the duties of a good digitizer is to make sure you give your customers or your clients, the best whenever they give you jobs to digitize. Right, that is it. That is coming out so beautiful. Then I'm going to go over to the next element. There is another thing I need to see here. I'm going to have to fix that. When you look at this place, let me zoom in for you so you can see this place is not well, aligned. So I'm going to just click on it, click on my reshape tool, and then bring it down. You can see that we have it right there now. Makes sense. Then the next thing is the next element, which is the letter I. I'm going to click on my tool again, which is the column A tool. I'm going to click on it. Then I'm going to start digitizing. Let me start from here. I'm going to left click here, then go over here, left click, come here, left click, go back, left click, left click. Then I'm going to strike on the enter key to generate my stitch. You can see that this is pretty straightforward. Let me check the start and end points. So I want you to start here, and then I want you to stop here. No, I want you to stop here also. It's going to start here, it's going to stop here, so that when it moves to the next letter on the text, which is letter N, it's going to also start from here, then go all the way through. Let me see where this one stops. Click on this also, so it starts here and stops here. So this is what I'm going to do. Okay, it starts here and stops here. So let me go over to change this. I'm going to click on this now. I want this to start here, so this one stops here. So from here it's going to jump it and come over here, then stitch all the way down. That is it. Then I'm going to go over to digitize the next element, which is the next text or element, letter or element. I'm going to go over to pick my tool, which is the column A tool. Then I'm going to start digitizing. I'm going to come over here, left click, left click. I'm going to left click, left click. Now I want you to pay attention to how I'm going to digitize this letter N. It is very important to pay attention to this, because it's not, the shape is not straightforward like the F and the I, right? Quick one before we get back into the video. If you are enjoying this free tutorial and you would like to learn embroidery digitizing in a more structured way, I invite you to join my complete course, Embroidery Digitizing Mastery, from basics to brilliance. Inside, I'll take you from fundamentals to advanced level digitizing using practical real-world projects and easy to follow lessons. Inside, you will learn how to digitize logos, carton flaps and pockets, agbada embroidery designs, and much more. If you are ready to stop guessing and start digitizing with confidence, click the link below or in the description to get started now. The early bird offer is only open for the limited time. Let's get back into it. So let me go back to start from the beginning. I'm going to left click now, then come over here. I'm going to left click, come over closely, go left click. Now look at this point here. I'm going to left click, then I'm going to take it all the way up a little bit, left click, come back here. I'm going to left click, and see I'm maintaining this same point here, so that it's going to enable me to move around at this area, right? So I'm going to come over here again. I'm going to left click, come down. I'm going to left click again. I'm going to come over to this area, then left click, come back here, left click, left click. You can see for me to be able to move around here, I still maintain the same point here, right? So I'm going to left click, then I'm going to spread it down a little bit, left click, then I'm going to come down, left click, then the same thing I did here, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come down, left click, backspace. I'm going to left click, I'm going to click here, I'm going to left click here, come over here, left click here, come over here, left click, come over here, and then do this, left click. Then I'm going to take it up, I'm going to left click, then I'm going to left click, then I'm going to strike on the enter key to generate my stitch. You can see that this is beautiful. When you digitize a shape like this, and this place feels properly, it means you are doing something right. You can see how this feels properly, right? So makes sense like that. Then I'm going to go over to the next element. So but before then, let me see the start points and end points of this letter N. I'm going to come over now to click on my reshape tool. So it starts here and then stops here. That makes sense. Let me see if it stops here. Let me see. I always like my object or element to stop in the right place to enhance the stitch of my object, right? I want it to stop somewhere that really makes sense. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to stop here. Yeah, I want it to stop here. So what I'm just going to do for me to, so because the next thing I'm going to digitize is this area of the hair, so I'm just going to have it here, have the stop point of this end here, then it's going to come over here and then run all through down and then stitch this. So what I'm going to do now is to click on, use my run tool. So I'm going to click on the run tool, then it's going to run from here right down all the way down. Enter key to generate the stitch. Then I'm going to go over to pick my tool, which is the column A tool. Then I'm going to go over to start digitizing. I'm going to use my left click, left click, left click, left click, strike on the enter key. That is it, right? So I'm going to use my reshape tool again. It starts here, but I want it to start here and then stops here. I'm going to bring the plus sign here. It's going to stop here, right? Then I'm going to click on my tool again, which is the column A tool. Then I'm going to have it from here, this here, left click, left click. I'm going to zoom in, left click, left click, left click, bring it here, left click, left click, left click, take it down a little bit, left click, left click, left click, left click. Then I'm going to strike on the enter key to generate my stitch. Can you see that? So beautiful. That is beautiful. Then the next element is this letter N. So we already have an N here already. So what I'm just going to do is to duplicate this N and then bring it here. So I'm going to click on it, select tool, click on it to select it. Then I'm going to click on Ctrl D to duplicate this letter N. Then I'm going to use my direction key to move it down to the next N. That is it, right? That is it. You have it right there, right? Then the next thing I'm going to do is to click on my tool again to digitize the letter C. I'm going to click on my column A tool. Then I'm going to start from here, right? But no, let me check again. I'm going to check the start point and end point of this N now. But before then, let me check for this one. Click on this. What's the start point and end point? So it can start here and this stops here, right? Then this, I'm going to check this. Check for this. It starts here and I want it to stop here actually. Then I'm going to use a running tool to connect from here to here so that it's going to move down here, right? Then I'm going to click on my run tool. Then it's going to stitch from here. No, let me undo this. Click on my run tool. Then it's going to stitch from here, here, and then come down here. I'm going to click on enter key. Then I'm going to go over to click on my column A tool, right? Then I'm going to start digitizing, right? So I'm going to click here, click here, click here. So this is a curve object. So I want you to notice the button I'm going to use on my mouse. So I'm going to left click now, left click, because this is a curve object here. I'm going to right click to enable me to curve properly. Right click, I'm going to right click, right click, right click, right click, right click. I'm going to right click, right click, right click. I'm going to right click, right click, right click, right click. I'm going to left click at this point, and then left click at this point. Then I'm going to click on the enter key on my keyboard to generate my stitch. That is it. Quick one before we get back into the video. If you are enjoying this free tutorial and you would like to learn embroidery digitizing in a more structured way, I invite you to join my complete course, Embroidery Digitizing Mastery, from basics to brilliance. Inside, I'll take you from fundamentals to advanced level digitizing using practical real-world projects and easy to follow lessons. Inside, you would learn how to digitize logos, carton flaps and pockets, agbada embroidery designs, and much more. If you are ready to stop guessing and start digitizing with confidence, click the link below or in the description to get started now. The early bird offer is only open for the limited time. Let's get back into it. You can see how that actually comes out so beautiful, right? So let me see the start point and end point of here. So it's going to start here and then it's going to stop here. That makes sense. Yeah. So then I'm going to go over to digitize the letter E. I'm going to come over here, click on this, my tool, which is the column A tool. Then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to left click. I'm going to left click. I'm going to backspace, left click, come down here, left click, then strike on the enter key, right? I'm going to click on my reshape tool. This starts here, and then I want it to stop here, right? Move it back a little bit. That is it. Then the next thing is this element here. So I'm going to click on my tool again, which is the column A tool. Then I'm going to click on here, left click, come down here, left click. Let me zoom in, let me backspace. I need to trace that part very well. I'm going to left click, right, backspace. I'm going to left click, I'm going to left click. Digitizing is actually very interesting when you know the right tools to use. Left click, right? I'm going to left click again, left click here, then left click. I'm going to left click, then strike on the enter key on my keyboard to generate my stitch. That is it. Can you see that? That is so beautiful, right? So I want to quickly show you something. So you can see, let me go over to Shift L to show you can see we have all these, separated. So I'm just going to group it, right? I'm just going to group it, click on it, then come over here, right click, then come over here, click on group. So we have it in one form now. You can see that. So it's not the letters are not broken. So I'm going to just go back, undo. Then I'm just going to apply color, which is color white, right? Select it, then come over to the color palette down here and click on white. That is it. Then the next thing on my logo is the last text, the text we have here, right? This text we have here, right? So we have it. So I'm just going to go over to click on my lettering tool or text tool. I'm going to click on it. Then I'm going to click on my work area. Then type the text ESTD, caps lock on, ESTD space 2025. Then I'm going to strike on the enter key to generate my stitch. That is it. Then I'm going to bring this here, then fit it in properly. But before then, let me check for the font here. All right, so I'm going to right click, object property. We already have it here. Click on special, then click on this drop down menu. I think block 1 will be suitable for this here. Block one, that is it. You can see that. Let me undo this, take this off, then bring this, and then bring this here. Then I'm going to stretch it, right? So but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my reshape tool. Yeah, but before, let me just click on it, move it, right? I want to make sure it fits properly with what we have there, right? Bring it down a little bit, bring it down a little bit, take this up a little bit, right? Then I'm going to use to move it down a little bit more, right? Bring it down. Then I'm going to click on my shape tool. Then I'm going to use this. Let me zoom in, right? I'm going to use this. There's like an arrow here. I'm just going to use it to spread the text so that it's going to fit properly to what we have there. You can see that, right? Then I'm just going to highlight this, bring it down, right? Let me reshape, bring this down a little bit. Yep. Then I'm going to click on my reshape tool to move each letters to fit in properly, right? Then I'm going to move this also here, right? Then move this here, move this here, move this here, then move this here. That is it. That is it. That is it. Then I'm going to apply color, which is the white. That is it. So I'm going to separate the artwork from the actual digitized logo now. So I'm going to click on the artwork, or let me hide the artwork with letter D. Can you see that? Can you see that? So I'm going to change the background of this so that you can see it properly. I'm going to change this background, right? Edit. Okay, then okay. Can you see? That's our. Let me bring out the artwork. Can you see? That is it. This is the artwork here, and this is the digitized logo we have over here, right? This is beautiful, right? I actually plan to be doing this live so often, so to be able to teach a lot of you, or at least get the basics of how the Wacom embroidery software works, right? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next session.